Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. If you have social media, I'm sure you've heard of the whole Will Smith, Jada Pinkett scandal. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. But the reason why I bring that up is because I know that because of everything going on with that, Jada has gotten a pretty bad rap. And number one, to begin with, guys, we're no one to judge anybody. All we can do is let people live their lives and do us, right? You do you, I do me, and just put your best foot forward and keep it moving. What other people do is really none of our business. But the reason why I bring this up is because I saw an interview that she did with Lewis Howes. And one of the first comments that I saw for that video was not verbatim, but this is what I remember. Something like, this is the very first Lewis Howes video that I won't watch or listen to because of Jada Pinkett. And I think, to be honest, you're doing yourself a big disservice not to watch that video because it is just filled with so many relatable things that really have nothing to do with Will Smith or her relationship with him. It's all about her relationship with herself. And if there's something that I talk about a lot, I preach it, I'm passionate about, is your relationship with yourself. Now, what she talks about in this video, go ahead and check it out if you haven't yet. She talks about dealing with depression. She talks about dealing with thoughts of just not being here anymore. And so it just brought me back to what I've talked to you guys in the past when I went through depression, when I went through anxiety. And I was like, okay, you know what? I think it's time, because she shared that story, it brought me back so much to those moments that I was like, let me go ahead and share what I went through and how I got through it. Because the thing is that it's so common, but it's also not something that many people talk about. And one of the things that I was told when I was going through it was, it's fine. You learn to live with it. And my answer was no. I refuse to live this way. And if this is the way that I'm going to live, then what is the point? Let's get started. So this all happened about 7 years ago when I felt like a lot of my identity was in my career, and certain things happened there that I won't get into too much detail. But what I will say is that depression is not tied to one specific thing. When I've mentioned why I went through it or what I think was the thing that led me down that spiral, people will say really that? But there's no one specific thing that will make you go into a depressive state of mind. It's many different things. And no, don't ever let anybody invalidate your feelings. Only you know what you feel, only you know what you're going through. And at the same time, because only you know what you're going through, only you are able to get yourself out of there. You have to put in the work for yourself. You can get help out there, but at the end of the day, it is your responsibility. But if you really think about it, that just gives you so much more power to know that you got this. You can do this. But let me start from the very beginning. So about 7 years ago, as I mentioned, I felt like my identity was very tied to my career, right? And things kind of went south there. I went into a big depression. I felt very disappointed in myself. I hadn't done anything wrong thinking back, right? But at that moment, I just felt like I was so disappointed in myself. And I remember the disappointment was pretty much what got me into my depression. And then anxiety was just like, where do I go from here? What's next? And I read a quote by the philosopher Lao Tzu. I'm sure you guys have probably heard it or read it, that goes, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're at peace, you're living in the now. And I was doing two of those things very, very well. I was living in the past and beating myself up about it. Therefore, I was incredibly depressed. And I was looking too far into the future where it was like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen in the future? And the only thing that I was paying attention to in the present was the bad emotions, the disappointment, the negative self-talk, the thought of not trusting myself to make decisions. That was the only thing that I was focused on in the present. The other two I was very focused on, past, future, Lord Jesus. And she mentions in the interview how one of the worst moments during her depression was simply waking up. Waking up was the hardest. And when she said that, I was like, huh, I felt the same way. I felt the exact same way because waking up just it allowed you to be aware of what was happening. And your sleep, you're kind of just numb to it all, right? You're fully unaware. And so waking up was like going back into that reality of being at a place where you don't want to be. Right. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I need help. I need help. But if you follow that quote, then you need to know also if you want to be at peace, you need to learn how to live in the now, in the present moment, right? My mind was not peaceful. My mind was a whole roller coaster, was a whole tornado. I felt like I was living in hell in my mind, right? So when I tell you that your mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy, at that point, my mind was my very worst enemy. And I know a lot of people out there are in that same situation right now. But what I'm here to tell you is that it doesn't have to be permanent. I spoke to many people about what I was going through who decided that, yeah, it's permanent. Yeah, I'm going to live with this. Yeah, I'm going to. No, it doesn't have to be. You can get out of there. If I did it, so can you. Number one, my number one, and I know a lot of people don't believe, I'm a firm believer in God. And I turned to God 100%. I cried to Him, I begged to Him, I worshiped Him because I got to a point where I had no choice but to turn to Him fully, right? Because I didn't have the answers. And if I don't have the answers, I have to go looking for the answers, right? Now, I had watched the movie Man on Fire with Denzel Washington and Dakota, I forget her last name, but them, right? And there's a scene in the beginning of the movie where Creasy, Denzel Washington's character, tells the sister, I am the sheep that got lost, Madre. And later on, Pita gives him a little necklace of St. Jude. And she tells him, St. Jude, he's the patron saint of lost causes. And so I turned to God and I prayed a lot to St. Jude because I felt like I was a huge lost cause. I needed to find myself again. And my biggest prayer was find me. Help me find me, right? Allow me to get out of this darkness that I'm in because I had no idea how I even felt in there. But I'm not going to look for how I fell in. I want to figure out how to get out. And when you have no other answer, I was like, I'm turning to God. He's my main right now. And I remember telling my mom that, but she also looked at me because I would just kind of sit and just be. And my mom told me something very powerful. She said, God said, help yourself and I will help you. In Spanish, it goes, Dios dijo, ayúdate y yo te ayudaré. In other words, yes, God's going to help you, but you also have to do your part. Yeah, a lot of us say leave it up to God, but you can't just stay there. You can't just stay there, just wallowing in self pity. You also have to do your part. You have to get up. You have to get going. Your life is worth it. Get up and get moving. And as I mentioned earlier, waking up was difficult. Being awake was difficult. Being asleep was easy. And so I said, it's time to face my fears. So I used to nap a lot during the day because I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to be awake. So it was like, nah, it's time to stay awake. It is time to put an effort for myself. At that point is when I started doing Zumba. I started going to the gym. At that age, I believe how old was I? 26, 27. I stepped into my very first studio lesson, like dance studio lesson, because I've danced all my life, but I always just danced in my room. And I was always very shy to even show people what I could do because there was I know that I can dance, but there was a part of me that was like, no, I don't want to show it to anybody, right? But during that time was like, you know what? Life is too short to be shy. Let me go out there and enjoy. Let me go out there and get my mind off of things. And also, I feel like life, God will put you through a lot of trials just so you can actually start paying attention. Be aware, right? I started seeing a lot of angel numbers during that time. My main two were 1111 and 555. And I'll tell you what they meant to me. 1111 to me during that time, you know how they say, if you see 1111, make a wish. 1111 for me means Be careful what you wish for. Pay attention to what your thoughts are, because whatever you're thinking at the moment you see that number, the universe takes a mental picture, and it's that much more easy for whatever it is that you're thinking about to manifest into your life. So make sure that when you see that number, that's a very powerful number. When you see that number, make sure that your thoughts are balanced out to how you want your life to be. Does that make sense? So if you want good things in life, if you want to be happy, if you want positivity, make sure you're thinking positive thoughts. Because a lot of the time we want certain things, but our mind, our thoughts are somewhere completely different. Negativity, just bad self-talk, all of these things that are so common in one's mind, right? It's probably the most common. Make sure that when you see that number, you check yourself. You check what your thoughts are, and make sure that if you're thinking something negative, you switch that around real quick, because it's the universe letting you know whatever you're thinking will manifest into your life. Second number I mentioned was 555. And what that number meant for me was let go of the old to make room for the new. Let go of what is no longer serving you so you can allow new things to come into your life that can actually serve you. So at that time, I had to let go of things that just didn't serve me anymore. Whether it was a mentality, whether it was a person, a place, a thing, whatever it was a time to let go of things that just no longer serve me anymore, so I can make room for things that were meant to be there, that were going to do something positive for me. And so at that point, I decided, you know what? My career, my job, those are only a part of my life. It doesn't define who I am. And so I decided to start putting energy into the things that light my heart, my soul on fire, things that make me happy, such as dance, such as fitness, such as just feeding my mind with positive things, which we don't normally do. We don't take the time to feed our minds with the good things that we're supposed to feed it, right? As I mentioned in other videos, we don't take the time to pull the weeds and get rid of them. We're just constantly feeding our mind with whatever comes into our mind or whatever the world has going on around us, right? It was like, okay, yeah, my job, once I left work, work stayed at work. And then after that, it was like, okay, it's time to get my day started. As I mentioned before, I started going to Zumba. I started going to the gym. I started dancing. I studied angel numbers. I started the law of attraction. It was a lot that started going in my mind. And I was like, okay, I like where this is going, right? You start seeing differences here and there. But as I mentioned before, the healing journey is like this, right? You have good moments, you have bad moments. And I put in so much work on myself. I lost 20 pounds during that time of fat. I gained quite a bit of muscle. My body changed a lot. I changed a lot. My mentality changed a lot. My body changed a lot. But it was more than anything because it was like life is too short to be focused on the bad things all the time. But when I tell you that the healing journey never ends, at that time, I also started watching a lot of YouTube videos, motivational videos, the hustle culture, right? You got to get to work. You got to put the work in. There's no time to sleep. There's no time. So, yes, there's also a toxic side to certain things. But at that point, it helped me make it out of what I was going through. And now later on in life, it was kind of like, okay, take it easy a little bit. But at that moment, it helped me so, so much. So we're going with God. We're talking about angel numbers, spirituality, law of attraction, get moving, so many different things that went into this process, right? But even then, I still had my moments where it was like mad depression, mad anxiety. I remember the day that I was like, holy crap. I was at work and I used to work in an emergency hospital and I was counting pills for a patient. I used to work in the veterinary field. And I remember that day was different because in an emergency setting, it's chaos most of the time, right? A lot of things are going on, but nothing fazed me. Nothing bothered me. The only thing that I noticed was literally what was right in front of me. And I remember counting pills and I was like, everything seemed to be quiet outside, outside of me. And it just felt like calm waters. It felt quiet. It felt numb-ish, but I liked it. I was like, this is different. I've never felt this before, right? And so that night I was talking to my mom and I told her, Mommy, this and this is happening. This is how I feel. And now when I would see the number 1111. I never ask for anything material anymore when it comes to that number, but I started thinking, what do I really want in my life? What do I really want to manifest into my life? Right? And until you go through situations like these, it's really easy to be like, girl, I want money. I want this. I want that. No, all I wanted was happiness, peace, love, and health. That's all I ask for. To this day, whenever I see 111, 1111, whatever it may be, repetitions of number one, I say, give me happiness, peace, love, and health. That's all I ask for. That's really all that I ask the universe for. And I was talking to my mom and I told her what I was feeling. And she looks at me and she goes, you're in peace. You're experiencing peace. And I stood there and I was like, holy crap. I had never told anyone the things that I would ask the universe for. That stayed with me, just me. And when she told me this, I was like, oh, really? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay, okay. I'm not mad at it. I don't even know if I was happy. I was just at peace. I was just content. Yes, I was happy to notice that my mind was not in a state of chaos that day. And so that day showed me it's possible to not be in that state all the time. And so if this day is possible, it's possible to be in a constant state of what I'm going through right now, right? I made it out. If only for today, I made it out and I'm happy and I'm grateful, but I'm going to keep fighting so that this is my life. And of course, we're going to have trials and tribulations and we go through a lot of shit, but man, I don't have to be in a depressive state for fucking ever. And so I kept working on myself. And so I kept doing the things that made me happy. And I kept talking to God and I thanked God day in and day out. And eventually I got to a point of I became the happy-go-lucky person that I normally am. And when I mention, and it makes me emotional because, hold please, I need to collect myself. It makes me emotional because we don't realize how powerful we are. We don't always realize how powerful God is. Ask and you shall receive, but you also have to put in the work. And I always believe that I walk with God. Everywhere I go, I know He's with me because in my darkest moments, He lit up my path. I don't cry on camera. But when I tell you that you can make it, when I tell you that your mind can be your worst enemy or your best friend, choose to make it your best friend. Put in the work so that you can be with yourself peacefully. There's nothing like that feeling of peace. Don't give up on yourself. Do not give up on yourself. You're worth it. You're worth all the good things. And I had to feed myself that because there was a time during those moments that I hated myself. I would look at myself in the mirror and be angry, just be mad at myself. I got physical with myself. And now I look at myself and I'm just like, yo, I fucking love you. Like, I love you. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you, right? And so when it comes to Jada in that interview, sometimes you have to have gone through that situation to know where she's coming from. And that's why I say you cannot judge anyone. You never know what she's gone through, what they've gone through as a couple. All we know is that we're all human going through this human experience. We're humans who have no idea what this day will bring because we've never lived this day before, right? All we can do is put our best foot forward and hope for the best and hope that at any given situation we'll make the right choice. But also knowing that it's possible that you may not. We're human. We don't know everything. But what I'm trying to say with this is that whatever you're going through, you can make it out of. You've got this. He's got this. And if you guys work together, if you allow him into your life and you put the work in and you decide that your life can be beautiful and that it will be beautiful, it will be beautiful. Okay? And then life is going to test you. Whatever you've learned then, life will test you in the future. But you already made it through something. You're going to keep making it. You've got this. The only time when you won't make it is when you're no longer here. But until that day, you have to fight. You have to fight for yourself. And the fight is worth it. And all I can say is you've got this. I believe in you. Believe in yourself. Whatever form of help that you can get out there, go and get it. Do whatever it takes to get to a place in your life where you're happy with yourself. Whatever it takes, as long as you're not harming anybody, do whatever it takes. Believe in yourself. Believe that you can do it. Believe that you can make it. Believe that whatever it is you're going through, you're going to make it out of there, no matter what. All right? Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If it's at all helpful, guys, take whatever you can from the videos that I post, because a happy, peaceful life is worth it all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye. I'm sorry that I got emotional. Sorry.